that'll work because I can.
Morning, everybody. We're here.
Morning.
Morning.
How you doing? Okay, so welcome to the Digging Deep podcast, Karen. So we've had a few technical issues this morning. We really, we don't normally, but then me and Mark aren't techie people, so it's a bit difficult when you don't know what you're doing. But we're going to try and crack on and see what happens. How you doing, Marky?
Yeah, not so bad, mate. Just recovering from that weekend, yeah?
Yeah, so we was at the St Patrick's Day Ball, Karen, and that's a big construction event, very lively. And Mark decided to go a bit cheap on the hotel, didn't you, Mark? And
I did. That's actually featured. That's actually featured on today's What's Doing Your Head In. So if you want me to just fire into that now that you've prompted that, I can start if you'd like.
Well, let's discuss this first. What we're doing here today. Look, construction has been one of the most dominated industries in the world, but it's been changing. Today, we're talking about the role of women in construction, what's changed, what still needs to change, and what the industry gets right and wrong. Joining us today is Karen Jones, who's built a career in construction, has been in the industry, seen the industry evolve, no doubt, firsthand, Karen. So welcome on board. But what we don't normally do, Karen, is we jump straight in and we ask normally Mark first, what's doing your head in, and then we'll ask yourself. So come on, Mark, give it to us.
Well, this is what's doing my head in, right? It's this new. It seems to be the new trend on hotel rooms. So. Obviously, as Mark has explained there, we went to a St Patrick's Ball and I left things last minute, as you normally do. I've gone to book my hotel room. The reception looked nice on the picture. The price was all right. So I've just clicked, book. And when I got there, it was awful, yeah? It was one of those pod rooms. There's no window. It's just like a door. And as you open the door, you trip over the bed. It was absolutely awful, right? And I've got to tell you this, right? I screenshot. This is someone else's review, right? And it says, unless you've done time at HMP or been a kidnap victim, you won't know what we're talking about, right? That is what that's how small the room was. It was 7 meters squared. It was literally a bed, a toilet, and a door, and it was no window, and it was awful. So that's what's doing my head in. What's doing my head in is I thought I booked a room. It was more like a shipping container, but half the size.
The thing is, Karen, right, is Mark doesn't tell you half the story. A lot of the story is based around that Mark always has a mishap when he goes on holiday or books a hotel room. So somehow, I think there's a common denominator, Mark. according to Sarah, there is.
Yeah, because she had to share the room with me, and she weren't happy about that room either. And it was that small that I had to get out while she got dressed, and she had to get out while I put my jacket on. That's how small it was. You couldn't bend over to do your shoes up. Someone had to get out of the room.
So, Karen, what's been doing your head in?
Well,
anything?
My usual thing is, and my kids always tell me, it's passwords. Passwords and tech are just not my thing.
You're the reason we've had tech issues then?
Yeah, exactly. I definitely bring the tech weirdy stuff goes on. Whenever I'm trying to do something, you can guarantee my computer will fail, everything will go wrong, and yeah, it's a nightmare. But passwords, like every single thing you need now is a password, and it's crazy. I tried to change my phone, and it took me 3 months because I just knew that once I did it, it would just be like there would be all these password questions, and then it says, put your password in. So you put your password in, and then it asks you for no, you can't use the same password, but like that password was fine before. And then it's like you've got to add on, different numerations. And then when you actually get to the end and you think you've got there, it says password too weak. So you start all over again. So yeah, passwords for me is just everything now is passwords.
I can actually really relate to that because what makes me laugh is the different rules they have. So you'll go on one and you'll put in, say, I don't know, a memorable password, and then you'll log on to another site and it goes, "Oh, I want a special character, a capital letter. I want your friend's cousin's fish's roommate," and and so it says, "Oh, you should always remember your passwords." Are you joking? How am I going to remember red front door 25 exclamation mark hashtag and sign amperand?
And then it changes, doesn't it? Then they say there's been a data breach,
Oh,
and
yes.
you've got to
Yeah.
change all your passwords.
Yeah.
And you think,
Yeah. But they never tell you about the data breach, and they don't tell you who data breached, so you just don't know.
yes, you just got to change all of them over again. This is one of our lives. That someone showed me how to do it on the iPhone once. You have a special, you save it, and it's got loads of different characters.
Yeah,
And
good luck remembering that.
I can't remember.
Technical. I do remember a funny story, actually. I was with my friend, and she's like 100 miles an hour, and we were going away, and we were going through she bought like express check-in through, to get past all the queues, and she got to the barrier, and she suddenly, her phone just wasn't working, so she had to get a laptop out because she just saved like whatever password it gives you, so she had no idea what the password was to get the code to scan to get in, right? And I was like literally like, bye, I'm over here. It was ages, and she had to like get the laptop out, fire it up, then the battery was flat. It was bonkers.
Yeah, and it's meant to be helping. I don't know, helping our old ways, getting moving ourselves forward in technology. I think it's because our generation has probably been left behind a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what it
Right,
is.
so look, Mark, you normally have a few stats about the conversation today. Anything you got?
Yeah, so just to give you a bit of context about what we're talking about, in construction, women only make up 15% of the workforce, which in numbers is about 300 to 330,000 women. Only 1 to 2% of those are actually based in manual roles, on the tools, so to speak. Of the 15% of women in construction, only 7% hold an executive role. We have got growing numbers in management, engineering, and surveying. There's only actually one industry that's worse than construction, by 1%, by the way, which is mining.
Oh, yeah.
No comment.
Let's okay. After that, then, Karen. So let's start from the beginning. We obviously want to know how you ended up in construction. You know, your first role, what attracted you to the industry, and
Yeah.
then a bit of your expectation versus reality.
Yeah. It was kind of like, it was a baptism of fire, really. And I bought my first property back in the day. It was a 4 bedroomed on a little housing estate, ruined house. It was repossessed, and it was £60,000. And I remember it was 60,000 because my mortgage was £60 a month, interest only, which was like, can you imagine that? Now it'd be crazy. And it was a bit of a wreck because people had apparently had old people living in there, and it had been repossessed, sadly. So, the radiators were off the walls, everything. And this was a relatively new build house. So the back garden, it was like a jungle. They'd had pigeons and birds and parrots or something out the back. So we uncovered all sorts of sheds and everything once we started like ripping everything apart. And the kitchen was just one of those little galley kitchens that you can't sort of move around in. And I was just thinking, it'd be nice to like open it up. And I had no clue, like structurally, I didn't know. This was a stud wall. I thought it would be fine. Just take this wall out, change the windows, did it up, added a few things, converted like part of the garage to an office. Yeah, and then I had a horse. So the horse was being stabled somewhere else, and that's sort of my ideal dream was to get a property with some land, do it up and whatever. So I was just out one day, and I randomly went into the building society, which was at the back of an estate agent, and I saw this I don't know, rundown shack in a field. And I thought, wow, that looks amazing. I think the price of it then was like 225 for 8 acres and a rundown cottage in Gloucestershire. So I went back to my husband and I was like, look, I've just found this amazing place. Like, you know, I showed him a picture and he was like, what's that? Tried to sell our house. 3 houses in the street were all for sale. So I did all the usual, you know, make the coffee, put flowers in, da da da. And I spoke to the guy who was a potential purchase buyer. And he was like, yeah, I love your place. Went straight to the thing, gave us the money. And then an ironic situation happened where he was also based in South Africa. And he'd been called back to South Africa, but he bought the house. So I then rented my own house back while I did up this new house with the 8 acres. So I just sort of fell into it, and I just loved it. So I got to the new house, and I took my mum there, and I was all excited. I was like, "Look at this house!" And she just cried, and she was like, "Where are you going to live?" I'm like, "This is fine for now, you know." I was also 9 months pregnant at that point, so about to have a baby. And yeah, so my waters broke at the point that I was, you know, just moving. And yeah, I was in hospital, had to have a cesarean, had to have different complications went on. And so I left my husband to just like move into the house. And my mum went to see her and she was just like, oh my God, it's a wreck. He's just shoved all the stuff through the front door, like literally, you can't get in.
Wow.
So I came home and I had to like get over planks because they'd excavated huge amounts of land to put all drainage in and all these things. So I had to like take this newborn baby. Then they took the gable end off the side of the house to do this extension. So yeah, I had a bit of plastic and a bath by the side, you know. It's just like,
So yeah, like everyone, we always say that people kind of fall into construction or plant hire. I mean,
yeah,
that's our thing. We've always said. So you pretty much fell into it then, really, and it wasn't something that you had planned to do. It was just something that happened.
no. I started my career as a hairdresser, you know, so it's a totally different situation. Um,
So what age was that roughly? Oh, oh, what happened there? What age was that roughly? Sorry, start again. What age was that roughly? We'll gut that out.
what when I
You fell into like so.
my first property I think I bought when I was about 20. So I was relatively young, and then then I went on to this 8 acres and whatever. I just thought, you know, I'm not going to mess around with these little bits in between. There was no property courses. There was no. I had no idea what I was really doing, but I just had this can-do attitude, and everybody said to me, "This is in an AOMB. You'll never get planning." I didn't know what that was at the time, and I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. So we marked out the garden, but we used like the field and said that was our garden. So I built this just square block on the side of a cottage because I thought they'd just say no, and then they'll want it smaller and all those things. So we'll go back and forth. I put it in, and it passed straight away. So I just couldn't actually believe my luck, I guess. And like I said, I had no idea. So got one builder in. He was doing everything, the whole design build. Local builder got recommended him. Turned out to be an absolute nightmare. Cost a load of money. Ended up going to court with him because he didn't do certain things. Then I had to hire another set of builders. And that's when I really decided that these guys, although they really know what they're doing, the organisation and timeline of what they try to do is tends to be compromised, or one of them has to go off and get the materials, or one of them has to. So I was like this sort of gopher. So I then decided the next set of builders, it would just be that they supplied the labour and I would buy all the materials. They would just tell me what I needed. I'd go out and buy it. I would get all the samples, we'd discuss things, and and I just learnt on the job. Like, it was total baptism of fire. So it was crazy. But
So,
then,
yeah, go on, sorry.
yeah, so then I liked, enjoyed that, and I ended up, I'd actually sold a different business, so I didn't have to work for a while. And I was a bit bored, so I went into an M&E, underfloor heating, solar panels, all of the air source heat pumps and so on. And I just went and worked part-time for this company just because I had nothing to do. So I learned, again, on the job. My father was an engineer, so I just have this like engineer's mind where if things go wrong, I try and fix it myself. If my Hoover breaks down, I'll take it apart.
That's it. You just get on with it. No mucking about.
So, right, let's move forward then into your first impression. You've entered the industry.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
first.
when you first entered the industry, did you feel welcomed?
No, not at all. It was very difficult, and I mean, I'm talking, 20 odd years ago. So things were very different. Luckily, the M&E company that I went to work for, it was a family-owned business, and the owner, his background was heating and plumbing engineering. His daughter was actually my boss, so she was quite a strong role model. And even though she was younger than me, she she kind of was quite pioneering, and I really respected her. And I think between the two of us, we were quite sort of a force to be reckoned with. Um, and yeah, so it was difficult, but more when I was going on site where I had to, and I shouldn't have had to do it, but prove my knowledge. And I think if you've got the knowledge, that is a powerful situation to be in if you understand what you're doing and you're passionate about what you do as well.
So do
Yeah,
you
and,
think,
and
obviously,
it's
construction can be quite direct and blunt as an industry? Do you think the culture is changing?
Um, yes, I do. I think it's really, really slow, but my daughter, who's 19, she was pretty much brought up in the car seat listening about insulation levels, EPCs, underfloor heating, all of these things. And I start get her to help me like draw, measure up the plans and everything. So I'd get, when I first started my business, it was just me, myself, my laptop, and that's it, and my phone. I had a little child's desk on my landing, and I had all these plans I would print out. And eventually, I took over my landing, and then eventually, I took over my front room. And so I used to get my daughter to help measure up, and I was really quite emotional when she said that she really wanted to go into construction. So no, that was absolutely zero of me trying to push her because it is a very stressful job.
Yeah, I bet. And fast forward to today, then is the industry generally improving for women? Is or do you still feel you have the same challenge?
I Last year I had a few instances where I did get very bullied by builders, and when they don't get their own way and they can't verbalize it, they do get aggressive. And being the link between the client and them, I'm the one in the middle that's getting it both sides. So yeah, I mean there are instances, but I believe and I hope that the younger generation coming through are actually finding that it is positive, and it is positive for women. And this is the reason for really coming on the podcast, is that I really want to inspire women that although it's tough, you know, there's a lot of people that want to help, like myself. I want to mentor women, especially people that are ladies that find themselves, they've got divorced, they've got a chunk of money, they might want to go into property and they just don't know where to go. And they go on a property course. And although that's great, it's not on site, it's not understanding the technical, because you're still putting your trust in the builder. And if you don't know and you can't question the builder, and the builder's like, oh yeah, it took me this time and I've got to rip this out and take it back to the brick and put this XYZ in, you're just going to go, okay, how much is that going to cost?
Yeah.
As I would be challenging that. And when I'm working for clients, I'm working on behalf of them. So, yeah, it's difficult being in the middle. It's stressful.
So now, currently, when you're in meetings or you're talking to your clients and stuff like that, do you still walk into a room and you're the only woman there?
Yeah. Literally last week, I went on site and I was called in by a surveyor who I work closely with, and he said, would I come and support him in an issue with a contractor and a client? And there were 7 guys.
Wow. Yeah. And so in your opinion, because obviously you've seen it, do you think we're actually starting to see a shift now? Are you starting now? Are we starting now to see more women in construction?
No, I don't. I don't think so. Although, speaking to my daughter because she's in uni, and I asked her sort of how are things now. She actually told me at the weekend that a contracting company came into the uni to speak to everybody, and the quite a senior person in this company said to her, so would you like to work consulting side or contracting side of project management? And she said, well, I'd like to work consulting side. He went, oh yes, he said, because girls don't really like to get their hands dirty, do they?
And that's crazy.
Like,
But I think that's a generation thing. I think that I've noticed with I've got younger daughters and stuff like that. And what I've noticed, culturally, they're more accepting, aren't they, with everything? And they're more accepting with where you sit in your pronouns. They're more accepting in that the equality of things compared to what we were. I think that's probably because our parents' generation brought us up to be we're probably the last, I think, maybe, I'm just presuming, but I think we're just probably the last of that generation that was brought up in that traditional way, where dad went to work and mum was at home most of the time.
yeah.
And I had situations, and it's been difficult the other way around. There's a couple of things that we, before we go on to because I'd like to hear about what the challenges actually are. But one of the things was, I remember setting up a training school down in Bridgewater. So Hinkley Point was kicking off at the time, and I think Mark Hughes was involved in that many years ago. And we got we got working with a college, and we got some women to come and do all the different dump truck, roller, everything else. And I think the biggest impression I got was we hadn't explained really, and that sounds silly, but we hadn't explained or we hadn't fallen into becoming in line with what the woman's expectation was. Yeah. So we went through this training with about 30 ladies, and at first it was good fun. Some of them dropped out, realised it wasn't for them, which is fine, because that can happen with men. Yeah. It's not a problem. But when we got to actually talking about roles and jobs and opportunities, they didn't realise the hours. And the biggest kickback, and I suppose one of the things that Hinkley Point experienced was the pushback was, oh, we didn't know we had to start at 7 o'clock. We're still responsible for some of that school run. We're still responsible for some of this. And it was a real strange scenario where we thought, well, we've done the right thing because we were desperate for operators, and the industry is desperate for operators. And in my training with simulators and in schools and colleges, the girls came out much higher and better than the lads at the same age, of around about 14, 15. On the simulator, you'd think it would be the other way around. It wasn't. The hand-eye coordination for the girls got it quicker than the boys. So we thought, this is amazing. This is what's going to happen. This can drive the shortage in the industry. But I don't think we actually explained, or I don't think the family balance then was right. But I think now, the new generation coming through, I think they're, you can't just go and buy a house with one salary, can you? Like you just said, you'd love your mortgage at £60 or whatever it was. You have to have both of you working, so there's more of an equality. Therefore, you're hopefully sharing, and I don't know, because my children are growing up, but you're hopefully sharing that responsibility. So maybe more women could come into construction.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of youngsters that maybe don't know what direction to go in. And if you're a female, you automatically disregard the construction industry. But there are many roles within that industry that are really exciting. I love my job. Every day is different. I've got a multitude of different projects, even around the world. um, you know, um, and you get to go to like lots of amazing events as well. The sort of social part of construction, as is it's a big part of the business, and you start to become a family. And some of my best friends I've collaborated with, and they've been on the journey. We've been on the journey together, and really, I just want to reiterate that the salaries, even a labourer, they're earning 150 minimum per day. That's a decent wage. When you think that you could be in an office job or any job, and your salary is 20-30,000. If you, for example, are going into project management, you're working. If you work in a consultancy company that's sort of central London, the salaries are 80-100,000 plus bonuses on top. You might get 30-40,000 a year bonus on top of that. And I don't think many people realise this. They want to sort of do the quick route, like, oh, let's just be an influencer or something like that.
And that's the thing. You're right. The salaries are good, and there's lots of great stuff in construction. The social side. One of the biggest things, because we often talk about, women coming into construction. So I wonder what your view was around. Is it that construction's historically been built around long hours, the travel, the site work? Do you think it makes it harder for women or women with families or the commitments?
So when I set up my business, I was a single mum with 2 kids. So, I had to juggle 2 kids, 2 different schools, 2 different ages, and working around the country because I was my own boss, so I had to go and hustle where the work was. So literally, I think, yes, it's difficult, but if you can back it up with a good network behind you, and also you have those like-minded people that you can collaborate with, and networking is just a massive, massive part of building a business. And yeah, I think you can make things work if you really, really want it and you're passionate about it.
That's it, and that's what it's about, isn't it? Having the passion, having the goals and the dream, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, look. So let's talk honestly. If I've got young ladies want to come into the industry, let's talk honestly about the challenges. What are the biggest barriers women still face in construction today?
I think it depends where you work. If you are a surveyor, a project manager, you're a QS. I think those roles are much more open now to women, and it's much more diversified. And a lot of companies do actually say, like I think it was you saying, Mark, that the IQ of the women was really good. We are multi-skilled. We're like, we juggle lots of things, women. So in the industry, I don't think it's such a challenge now because there are the younger generation coming through. I just think not enough are coming through, females.
To blow away some myths, then it's construction isn't only just physical jobs, is it? So, I mean, that's where people are put off, and it's not just boots and muck.
Yeah.
There's lots in procurement, design, project managing, engineering. You don't have to start on site to succeed, do you? You can start within the main offices. You know, that's another myth. The other myth is, you know, it's not a career for women, because it generally is. You're obviously proving that. It is a role for women. But have you had any, you know, do you get any assumptions then because of those non-physical attributes in the workforce? Do you get any assumption that you're not the decision maker, or, you know?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time in the early days when I turn up on site, they would all just run for the hills because they thought I was the building inspector or health and safety or somebody, you know, there to sort of tell them off. But once you start talking, and I think they understand that you're a fair person, you treat them with respect, you know, like I always have a laugh and a joke with the guys, and half the time I think now they forget I'm a female because we work as a team, and I think if you can get that team going and you're amongst the team, they respect you, and it is an earned respect, admittedly, but with the right technical background and knowledge, that's where I believe, you know, you come into your own.
So, what would you do then, or what should the industry do rather than you, if you was in head, you know, to attract more women? What should we?
I think more. I know there's roadshows and different things where they go into universities and schools, but I think at a younger age, just actually showing, you know, going into the schools, getting a group of like-minded people that work in construction, and just like trying to do those roadshows, and get the word out. You know, offer mentorship, which is something that I'm currently doing at the moment. Be that sort of role model, and just when people are just having a tough time in whatever role they're doing, be it man, woman, or anything in between, you know, it's just having somebody to sort of look to and aspire to. And I met a lady the other day at an event, and she pioneered women in property, and she was like my hero, you know, and she was sat 2 seats away from me. She stood up and said, "Hi, my name is da, da, da." And I was like, afterwards, I was like, I had proper girl crush. I was like, wow, you know, I'm just, I'm just blown away by what you did for the industry. And she was really shocked that I, you know, thought so highly of her. But you know, just looking up to those role models and seeing people in the limelight that can actually show that you can, you know, get to where you want to be, and inspire other people to go into the industry. And obviously, Portaloos, like if we could just change that, that would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have so many Portaloo stories.
That's the thing. You hear about them being knocked over in tower cranes and
Oh
everything
no,
else.
worse than that. So it was the end of the week, a Friday, and on the Saturday, the guys just happened to be working in the morning. And I got this call at like 8 o'clock. They were like, "Have you off hired the loo?" And I was like, "No, why?" And they were like, "We've looked everywhere and it's not here." So somebody stole the Portaloo, and there's just some things you should never take second hand, you know, and it was full.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, how did they do that? How?
Higher glory, maybe something like that. I don't know,
There's so many
but I
stories
mean,
about it.
looking at the industry as a whole, and obviously trying to attract women in construction. I mean, we've got really the industry at the moment currently really needs to embrace getting women into construction, because we've got skills shortages, you know, aging workforces, you know, and a talent pipeline that's just dropping off. You know, so if the construction industry ignores half the talent pool, women, then it creates its own labour shortage, doesn't it?
Yeah, because I think if you are just looking at taking on guys, then that's already 50% of the population that aren't going to get anywhere. So that's, it is worrying, and I have long chats with many people in the industry about where are the new talent coming from? Is it happening? Like I said, I've been on the journey with my daughter, which has been quite eye-opening. The first college we went to, because after school she wanted to go to college, we couldn't find where to go to start with. So we were looking for the construction management course, which they offered, which they said they did. So we asked various people, nobody seemed to know. We ended up in an electrical room, and the head of the department comes over looking around, and he's like, "Oh, hi, I'm head of department. What are you here for?" And we were like, "Well, we're looking for the construction management course. Is this where it is?" And he sort of looked my daughter up and down and went, "Well, no, but the childcare is over in that building over there." And she came out and she was devastated and she was crying and she just said, "I don't want to do that." So if we're not educating the people that are in the colleges and the lecturers, what hope have we got?
Yeah, that's just a bad thing on the college there. On the other side, there's some really good ones out there that do encourage lots of women to come in. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's devastating when you hear these type of things. So on that, I was going to say to you, like, as a young woman, thinking about entering the construction industry, like you're talking about with your daughter, what do you say to her? What do you do? Do you like? What would you do? What would you have wished you'd known when you first started?
I wished that there'd be more information in the mainstream about what you can and can't do. And I think those role models, especially the people you could go to or ask questions to or mentor, or someone that's been in it, that's done everything. My daughter's lucky that I've been in the industry, I've got lots of contacts, but I also can explain to her the situation. And she did end up finding an amazing college. And there were 12. There was 12 on the course, and 11 of them were boys, and she was the only girl in the class. And that's pretty tough for a 17-year-old to deal with.
Yeah,
And what would you wish you'd known when you first started yourself in the industry?
That's a tricky question. What would I have wanted to know? I think just be more educated with my once leaving school. What course could I go on? Where would that lead me to a university course, get a degree, rather than having to do things backwards, where I've kind of did the hands-on stuff and then did the everything else behind it. So I think more of a career path and having those people with that knowledge early on when I left school.
Yes, great advice. And I've got a couple of quick fire fun questions for you. You might have answered some of these already. So in your quick opinion, what's the best thing about construction?
The rugby, of course.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
The rugby.
And then what's what do you think the biggest myth about the industry is?
That the Portaloos are really not that bad, but we could get some pink ones.
That's it. And then your most memorable site moment?
Memorable site moment would definitely be the Portaloo moment when it disappeared. And we were even looking for it on the little mini roundabout down the road in case someone had pranked, dropped
Like
it
move.
for a laugh,
That's it. And then tea or coffee on site?
Black coffee always, always bring your own cup and never have the milk.
That is great advice. Absolutely great advice. And what is one thing you'd change about the industry if you could?
It's just more inclusive, and that's like, I know men also get you see the labourers, and the guys sort of, taking the mickey with them, and it is a good, it is a great industry, and ultimately for me, you're building legacies for people. You're building homes, and I drive past and I go, "Oh, I did that project, and I did that World War II bunker, and it got turned into an amazing B&B, and it's there, and I was part of that, and I brought that to life." And there's so many things that I want to do. I want to. There's such a big housing crisis, which is a whole nother topic, but there's so many things that I want to do to leave more of a legacy. It's not about the money, it's not about doing the best you can do, but it's actually leaving something so that when you're gone, you can say, "Do you know what? I got those people off the street. I give them some form of shelter." And the shelter for me, it's one of the basics in life. And so many people, especially now, I get so passionate about it because very shortly things are going to become really difficult, especially with the new renters' rights. I could go on.
Yeah. So let's go back to some of the bits and pieces. Right? When was the first time you realised that construction was still very male orientated? What was the moment, if you can remember, earlier in your career that really hit you?
I think one of the biggest, scariest things for me was obviously I had to go networking to try and get business. And I remember going into a room full of 200 men that were all there to talk about this great new development that was going to be built. So they were the consultants, the architects, the engineers. All of those people were there, and I just walked in and was like, "Is there any women here?" And I think there was three of us.
So, so there's a lot of talk about improving diversity in construction, but from your experience, let's be straight, has the industry generally changed over the last decade, or is it mostly talk? How do you feel about it?
I think it's 50-50. There are changes, and I believe, like Mark said, the younger generation are more accepting. My daughter was in the class with 11 of the boys, and she was so respected and they loved her. And she never, ever once said to me, "I don't want to do this. I hate it. It's not for me." So I do believe that the younger generation are much more inclusive, which is great because that's what we want. I just think it's getting the information out there that it's not just digging holes. That the people behind the scenes, the project managers, the structural engineers, the architects, the designers, do have a role in this whole producing of something new or.
Yeah, the misunderstood industry. What the people outside construction
Yeah,
always completely get wrong about it, and you're
yeah,
saying it's not just
yeah,
about digging
yeah.
holes.
And I try to collaborate on social media as much as possible with, I do have some female electricians I work with. I do have some female chippies that I work with. And that's really great because, there are some changes, things are changing. It will just be amazing if more people were taking up those trades. And I think
Yeah,
also it's AI. AI is not going to take over construction anytime soon.
no, not much of it. But I remember going back to Tobacco Dock. So I was working on Tobacco Dock years ago, way back in, I don't know when it was actually, late 80s, early 90s. I remember the first female painter, first trade we ever saw. I couldn't. It was quite. When I think back, it seems like it was I'm 100 years old, but it wasn't that long ago, really. You're talking 30 years, and unfortunately, she was quite a pretty girl as well. Which means that she was stopped every 5 minutes to be
Yeah,
spoken to. It was, and I just thought then, how are we going to break this
so,
culture? Is it just going to be a bit of a gimmick? But what I've seen in the last 15 years, at least, is that that level's gone along, and it is acceptable. I'd like to see more trades like you've mentioned, carpenters, painters,
Yeah.
you know, and get involved. But there's one thing I think, you know, if I was going to come in as a, you know, a question I wanted to ask was there ever a moment in your career you thought this industry just isn't built for people like me, and then after you thought that, what made you stay?
So that's a very good question, and I can think of an immediate situation when that happened, when it was during COVID and everything was just absolutely crazy. I was the only person that must have worked 24/7. Luckily for me, I had good suppliers who, I managed to get materials. But I had some very difficult clients, and because they were there all the time, they decided it would be okay just to, you know, abuse the situation, and it it did become quite a horrible, not nice situation, and that I remember standing in my house at Christmas, going, I don't want to do this anymore. I just cannot take the stress, the pressure of everything. And I was probably pretty tired as well. I pretty much had burnout. And a few of my friends were like, look, why don't you just go and get a job? Like, work in an office, you could do this, you could do that. And I was like, yeah, but I have so much knowledge. All of these years of knowledge, all of this, I can't just keep this in. I've got to share it. So that's what like carried me on, is the fact that I wanted to continue to share my knowledge.
And the last question we asked this before was at an event called Vertical, which is for access platforms and stuff like that. And there was two legends, ladies in the industry. One of them called Linda Betts, and she's probably one of the best known. If you've been in access, she's one of the best known salespeople, and she's been around for 30 odd years. She's just similarly retired out of the industry. But we were talking about women in construction and the day, International Women's Day in Women in Construction, and she was quite adamant that she didn't like that. She wanted a day. She didn't want to have to be singled out. She wanted to be treated equally, and the only way she felt women could be treated equally was if there wasn't these special days that were all the same. What do you feel about that? Do you feel that we need to have more of those days to highlight the situation, trying to get more women in, or do you think no, we should just compete as we are?
No, for me, it's about inclusivity, about men, women. Some of my greatest friends in the construction industry are guys, and they are so supportive of me. They're brilliant people. If I need support or I've got a question, they'll be there. They'll be helpful, and I just think it's just being inclusive rather than it's men, it's women, inclusive, like inclusive of all, every generation, age, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter if you're good at the job and you do the job. It's about just having that mutual respect, and I think not having that mentality where in the early days, and it's not so much now. I last week, seven guys and me, they were absolutely amazing. They all respected me. They listened to what I said. I gave my points, and they were great. There was no animosity between anybody. Whether they treated me as an equal, and just being equal is all we ask for.
Brilliant. Well, look, thanks, Karen. We won't keep you. So we had a few technical issues, but thanks for coming on and sharing your experience. It's been great, and I'm sure we're going to get some. We'll be at this episode. Will probably be out in a couple of weeks' time, but look, really grateful for you coming on. I'm sure we'll meet again at some industry event. We'd love to have you along to some of the events that we do. Yeah. And anyone listening and they want to get some more information, or they want to ask a question, or they give us experiences, like comment below. Follow us on all the platforms, the relevant ones, whatever your flavour is. And I'm sure if there's a question for you, Karen, we can send it on you. You'd be happy to get in touch with any young, inspiring ladies that want to come in and join the industry and learn your story. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for coming on, Karen. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
Lovely.
Thanks
See you
a
soon.
lot. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The opinions expressed within this podcast are solely the individuals and do not reflect the opinions and beliefs of the sponsors or its affiliates.